I've had this 2025 Toyota Tundra for over 6 months now, and while I like just about everything about it, there have been quite a few squeaks and rattles that have popped up. A lot of other Tundra owners have experienced a lot of noises too. Some people don't have any, luckily, but I've gotten quite a few people asking to show how I fix them. So I'll show you the noises I've had and what I did to get rid of them. You can ask the dealer to fix rattles, but with various noises coming from different directions, it's unlikely that they'll be able to duplicate all of them and track them all down. And they do tend to be dismissive of small problems, even if the truck is only a few months old. So I just decided to buy some material and take care of the rattles myself. Now, no one wants to have to fix rattles on a brand new truck, but the dealer would never be able to track them all down because they all happen under different circumstances. One rattle only happens over a certain type of road surface, another noise only happens over big bumps, and so on. And then there's the ones that come and go and only make noise half the time. So really, the only person that's going to notice all of them is someone who drives it every day. First, I went on Amazon and bought some felt tape, which is just felt that you can stick to stuff. Then I got a couple of different sizes of foam tape. You can get a whole roll of this stuff for pretty cheap, and it should last you a long time. I'll put links to it down in the comments. The most noticeable creaking noise that I used to be able to hear every time I drove was coming from the window gaskets. People have had many complaints about this part, mostly with the 2022 and 2023 models. They would complain about wind noise that was pretty loud on the highway, or sound like the window was either slightly cracked or loose inside the door. Toyota seems to have fixed the wind noise part, at least on this one, but these window gaskets make noise on the inside. It's not wind noise or rattling though. The interior door seals creak over bumps, and when you take a look, it makes sense. It's not attached in any way, and the fit is pretty loose compared to what it should be. The fitment is really sloppy, with big gaps that expose exterior paint underneath, much bigger than they are on older Tundras and other Toyotas. I pulled the gaskets back and added felt tape along the inside of the door frame so the rubber wasn't sticking on the paint, and that eliminated about 80 to 90% of the noise. Another creaking sound was coming from the headliner, which after doing a little research, I found out has faulty glue that doesn't hold properly. Because of that, the glued areas shift slightly, rubbing together, creaking every time the truck hits a bump. I pulled the headliner down just a little bit, then stuffed a doubled up piece of paper towel to keep the bad glue from making contact, and the noises are completely gone. Toyota knows this was a problem, and they would fix it under warranty, but it's a pretty big job, and I'd rather just take care of the noise myself rather than having a mechanic wrestle a new headliner in and hope they don't scuff things up doing it. It's something I might get fixed at some point, just because there's no telling if the bad glue will allow the headliner to sag eventually, and getting that replaced outside of warranty would be very expensive. I don't think it will cause problems, because it seemed like only a few glue points failed. This one actually took me a little while to track down because it only showed up when driving over those brick stamped roads. At first, I wasn't sure where it was coming from, but I finally pinpointed it to the panel way above the gas pedal. It turns out the panel isn't really fastened properly to hold it off the pedal assembly, so every time I hit a rough patch, it was tapping the top of the gas pedal and making that annoying rattling noise. There really should be another fastener on the other side to hold the panel tight. I just added a little bit of foam tape to the panel where it was making contact, and that completely eliminated the rattling. Now the dash would make a crack or creaking sound when hitting a big bump, and I wasn't sure exactly where it was coming from. It might have been coming from several spots. First, I pulled off the heads-up display bezel. It just pops right off. Then I put foam tape around it to hold it tight instead of flopping around loose. It was sitting pretty loose, so now it's nice and secure. Then I removed the two bezels around the vents in the driver's area and put foam tape around those to tighten up any movement. The speaker grills also lack any sort of foam or felt, so it's basically plastic on plastic, so I also put foam tape there. I'm not sure which of these did the trick or if it was all of them, but it seems to have gotten rid of that cracking sound when going over a big bump. This was one of the most annoying rattles that most Tundra owners have. The center console, which should be constructed better to begin with, squeaks in multiple ways. First, it would squeak going side to side, so if you're leaning on the console and going around a corner, it would squeak. Toyota did add a little bit of felt tape inside in response to the complaints about the 2022, 2023, and 2024, but the felt was really thin and wore through pretty much immediately, so I replaced it and it fixed the side-to-side squeaking. Then you might have the up and down squeaking where the console squeaks if you lean on it and there's downward pressure. The problem is that the spring itself makes noise with the weight of the console and someone leaning on it. Depending on how severe the squeak is, you can either disassemble the spring, which involves taking the console apart, or you can put some rubber bumpers on the side so some of the pressure is relieved from the spring. Mine wasn't bad here, so I didn't need to do anything with it, but other Tundras I've driven have been very noisy here. If you have the noisy springs, you could let the dealer handle that one. It can be tricky to take the console off, and since it's easy to pinpoint, it should be pretty cut and dry. The trim around the window switches would creak. These just pop right off, and you can unplug the window switches if you need to, and then you can put foam tape around the edges to give it a nice tight seal so it's not plastic rubbing against plastic. The cup holders do also make noise when you have anything in them. I'm not sure if it's the springs inside these prongs that make the noise, or if it's the prong itself that's just plastic rubbing against plastic making the noise. So pretty much anything you put in the cup holders is going to be creaky. The upper part of the driver's seat back would creak whenever I stopped or accelerated. At first, it was barely noticeable, but over time it got progressively worse. It didn't creak every single time you started and stopped, but it was at least 20% of the time. This has been a problem with the previous generation Tundra too. A lot of those had the same seat creak. I did take it to the dealer and they did give me a little bit of a hard time, but I showed them a picture of exactly where I thought it was coming from since many others have had the same noise. Otherwise, they probably would have just driven it around the parking lot and there's a good chance it wouldn't have happened right then. There's a TSB for the 2024, but not the 2025 at the time, but they were able to order the parts and take care of it. Telling them exactly where the noise was coming from was definitely the reason they were willing and able to fix it. Now the rear seat would squeak anytime you'd accelerate, decelerate, or go around a corner when someone was sitting in it. The hinge itself was making noise. If you fold the seat back forward and pull the upholstery out of the way, you can see the hinge. I put some odorless lubricant on it and it hasn't come back yet. One of the noises I still haven't been able to track down is coming from inside the door panel. It's a metallic rattling that happens mostly over roads that aren't perfectly smooth. It's not loud, but it's an annoying noise that comes and goes depending on the day. But when it is happening, it's a constant rattling pretty much the whole time. I actually removed the entire panel and checked for loose wires or fixtures. I couldn't find anything, except for when I held the frame of the door steady with a lot of pressure, the noise would stop. It seems to be coming from the window assembly. I added some felt tape behind some of the wires to prevent those from making noise in the future, but as far as the rattling noise, I'll mention it to the dealer next time it goes in for service, but since it's not super loud and doesn't happen all the time, I don't really have high hopes. The good news is that the door panel isn't too hard to remove, so you can fix most of the rattles yourself. There's just a handful of screws, though the wiring clips for the window switches and speakers can be a little tricky. Let me be clear, I'm not excusing any of these noises because most people would agree that a $75,000 truck shouldn't have squeaks and rattles. But on the other hand, it's unreasonable to expect zero noises ever. All cars have a noise here and there. Plus, if you were driving with the radio up halfway all the time, you probably would never hear most of them. However, seeing how little foam and insulation there is between panels like the speaker grills, trim bezels, inside the console area, and how much of the interior is just plastic panels rubbing against plastic panels is pretty disappointing, considering it would cost them almost nothing to add a little foam and felt tape to these pieces. And the truck is very quiet in terms of road noise, wind noise, and overall refinement, so it's not like they don't care about that stuff. This is really the only area where the truck falls short, and I really like just about everything about it. I know others have had problems with the build quality, but I can honestly say that the build quality is good. Aside from the noises, the interior is solid and well put together. The exterior is well built and the paint seems to be smoother than some of the other brands. The features all work reliably. I'm not saying there's nothing that could be improved, but overall the quality is good. The Turbo V6 is very powerful and torquey and it pulls heavy trailers effortlessly. In terms of power alone, it's way better than the old V8. I consistently average 19 miles per gallon, sometimes as high as 23. The transmission is extremely smooth, and the ride quality is excellent. I do drive quite a few different cars, and the luxury and refinement of this truck really is on the same level as luxury cars were just a few years ago, if not better. But Toyota does need to fix these small issues, because you shouldn't have a dozen squeaks and rattles with a brand new truck.